Hey, crypto family. So here's the million-dollar question everyone's asking right now. Is this pump legitimate, or are we looking at a classic bull trap? Let me cut straight to the chase here. I've been monitoring dozens of chart analysts that I follow religiously, and here's what's fascinating. Today's crypto price bump hasn't changed a single mind. Not one. The bears from yesterday? Still bearish. The bulls from yesterday, you guessed it, still bullish as ever. But here's what I've got for you today. I'm breaking down fresh analysis and commentary from 11 different XRP chart analysts. And get this, some of these experts are still calling for double-digit price action this market cycle. Can you believe that? And listen, I'm going to be completely transparent with you. I still firmly believe we haven't seen anything yet. The best is absolutely still coming. We are nowhere near the peak of this market cycle. That's just my honest take. Right now, XRP is sitting at $2.22, and Bitcoin just hit $90,473. And you know what? Even though I'll admit I'm not exactly doing backflips over Bitcoin movements, I've got to say, seeing it back above 90,000 makes me genuinely happy. Why? Because Bitcoin leads this entire market, whether we like it or not. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not losing sleep over Bitcoin price action. It's actually one of my biggest individual holdings. I've been diamond handing Bitcoin for over 8 years now. Same story with Ethereum, XRP, Chainlink, Cardano, Tron. I've been holding this entire portfolio since 2017. But here's the thing about Bitcoin leading the charge. Historically, that's exactly what it does. And honestly, here's how little the Bitcoin drama affects me personally. As long as Bitcoin stays number one in market cap, I couldn't care less, as long as I get mine. How many of you feel exactly the same way? Drop a comment below. Sure, would it be incredible to see XRP flip Bitcoin for the number one spot? Absolutely. I mean, XRP is my largest individual holding, so of course I'd love that. But honestly, I don't mind Bitcoin leading, because here's the secret sauce. Bitcoin typically peaks first. You can actually use that as your signal. When we finally see that Bitcoin peak, especially if altcoins are going absolutely crazy at the same time, that's when you'll get a crystal clear picture of where we are in this market cycle. But mark my words, we are not at endgame territory yet. Not even close. If history teaches us anything, we've got a lot more room to run. Now, let me share something I posted earlier today at 1:06 p.m. So about 5 hours ago. I grabbed a screenshot of XRP at $2.23 and wrote XRP at $2.23 and Bitcoin back above $90,000 right now. Is this just a relief rally or the real deal? I was asking this question because over the past couple of days, several analysts I follow, not necessarily my go-to experts, but credible voices, were actually warning that we might see exactly this kind of upward move. But here's the catch. They predicted it would just be a relief rally, a brief moment before we potentially drop even lower than we've already seen. So, what do you think? Are we looking at the real deal, or is this just a temporary bounce before the next leg down? Now, this is where it gets really interesting. I've been digging deep into what the analysts are saying, and let me share some fascinating insights with you. First up, we've got Crypto Michael, and this guy deserves serious credit because he absolutely nailed XRP's breakout this market cycle. When everyone else was doubting, he was adamant it would happen. And guess what? He's spot on. So, what's Michael saying now? Well, he thinks we've officially hit the bottom. He dropped this post this afternoon at 2:45 p.m. Central, just a few hours ago. Check this out. He's looking at Bitcoin's price chart and saying, "Final leg down called. Check." You can see the post he's referencing right there on screen. Then he drops this bomb, $80,000 bottom called. Check. And here's the kicker. He says, "Now we ride to glory. The printing season has begun." Talk about confidence, right? I really hope this guy's right, because I'd much rather see us moving up from here. Michael's convinced that Bitcoin bottomed out around $80,000, and now we're looking at nothing but upside ahead. And here's what I love about his consistency. He's still adamant that the cycle top isn't even close. He firmly believes XRP is headed for double-digit price action, and from everything I've seen publicly, he hasn't wavered on that prediction one bit. But let's get another perspective. The team over at Bitcoin Vector, these are the brilliant minds behind Swissblock, the on-chain analytics firm. They posted something really insightful just 2 minutes later at 2:47 p.m. Central. Here's what they're saying. Bitcoin is attacking $90,000. And I love that language. But we are still in a high-risk environment and momentum has not ignited. They're basically saying Bitcoin needs to build some serious momentum to break through this compression we've been stuck in since the all-time high. But here's their roadmap for a bullish scenario. First, we need a solid close inside that $89,000 to $90,000 zone. Then, we consolidate above that area and push toward $91,500. Finally, we get a full breakout through the $93,500 to $95,000 compression band. But, and this is important, they're warning that the risk signals need to flip into a low-risk regime. They want to see buyers completely overwhelming sellers while momentum really starts cooking. Without that, every move up is just tactical, not a structural recovery. So there's definitely some healthy skepticism there, which I actually appreciate. This is exactly why I love following the Swissblock team. They also run Glassnode, another incredible on-chain analytics firm. They just stick to the data, give you the historical perspective, and stay completely level-headed about it all. Now, here's another voice worth listening to. Chart analyst Jelly posted, "This bounce is nice, but bulls have a lot more work to do. Multiple high time frame resistance levels ahead. Reclaiming $91,000 to $93,000 would be a great start." And you know what? That's totally fair. Of course this bounce looks good. Who wouldn't want to see green candles? But Jelly's right. It's not confirmation that we're about to see a massive breakout. Look, I hope that breakout happens. I know you hope it happens, because when Bitcoin moves, the entire crypto space moves with it. But regardless of short-term price action, I'm still convinced the bigger story is just getting started. Now, I won't dive deep into this in today's video, but let me quickly explain what's been crushing prices recently. It all comes down to market makers who had an absolutely brutal day on October 10th this year. Picture this. The market completely cratered, and these market makers got stuck holding massive bags of crypto. Bitcoin, ETH, XRP, you name it. Here's the thing about market makers. They don't care which direction prices move. They just want to capture the spread, right? But on that fateful day, they bought crypto intentionally, then suddenly couldn't hedge against it. They went from balanced to massively overexposed in seconds. Normally, when they purchase crypto, they instantly hedge. It's all automated. But this time, everything fell apart within a second or two of their purchase. They couldn't execute the hedge, prices plummeted, and boom, they're stuck with way more exposure than they ever wanted. So what happens next? Because of their contractual agreements with lenders, they've been forced to sell for almost 7 weeks now. And here's the kicker. These situations typically take 6 to 8 weeks to resolve completely. The good news? There's probably still some selling happening behind the scenes, but it's very cyclical and predictable. We can be pretty confident this is exactly what's been suppressing prices. It's a real-world event creating real-world consequences. But here's the beautiful part. It can't last forever. It literally can't and won't. If this forced selling is still happening, and it probably is, it's going to wrap up pretty damn soon. And when that massive sell-side pressure finally disappears, game over. All you're left with are the bulls, because everyone else already threw in the towel. I think most of the people who were going to capitulate have already done it, and you absolutely love to see that kind of market-clearing action. Here's where things get really fascinating. Chart analyst Tech Debbie just dropped this gem. Many think the cycle has topped, some think months ago. What if we're barely halfway with the parabolic phase yet to begin? This cycle's uniquely glacial pace is confounding. Time can shake as many loose as volatility, if not more. Guys, I completely agree with this perspective, and I find this argument absolutely compelling. I haven't found a better explanation for what we're seeing.
I originally learnt about this from the legendary Raoul Pal and Julia Biddle over at Global Macro Investor. What Tech Debbie is tapping into here aligns perfectly with Raoul's thesis, and he's been calling this for over a year now, so major credit where it's due. Both of these analysts have been consistently saying, hey, this cycle is lengthening significantly, and Raoul Pal has done an incredible job explaining exactly why. It all comes down to debt refinancing cycles that have shifted from 4-year to 5-year terms. This isn't opinion, folks. This is cold, hard data. And here's why this matters so much. This directly impacts liquidity flows, and liquidity flows determine whether we get a 4-year or 5-year cycle. That's not theory, that's just fact. Then you've got the business cycle, which has historically been our go-to indicator for market tops. But guess what? It's lagging behind right now because liquidity is in a completely different place than we're used to seeing. So here's my honest take, and I'm going to be completely transparent with you about this. I do not believe we're in a bear market. And if I'm wrong, fine. Sometimes life sucks, and maybe I'll get this one wrong. But listen, all I can do is be honest with you. Sometimes I'm wrong about stuff. I'm human, but I'm always going to give you my genuine perspective. Right now, I just don't think we're in a bear market. If I'm wrong, I'll absolutely eat those words. No big deal. Look, I don't have a massive ego about this. It's never fun for anyone to admit they're wrong, but I won't have a hard time doing it if I need to. I just genuinely don't think I'm wrong about this one. And here's what I want to say to anyone who disagrees. Please don't just show me charts. I need the full picture. Give me macro reasons too. Use all the puzzle pieces to make your argument. If you're only looking at chart patterns, then I can show you tons of analysts pointing to positive chart signals saying we're definitely not in a bear market. So then we're just going back and forth about little technical indicators, right? But can you explain what's happening with macroeconomics? Can you tell me why your thesis is better than what Raoul Pal, Julia Biddle, and TechDev are saying? If you can't do that, you're probably not going to change my mind. Just being real with you. But I am open-minded. If you've got a solid argument, I genuinely want to hear it. Here's the bottom line. If this thesis is correct, everything's structurally the same. It's just taking longer to play out. And think about this logically. If Bitcoin is taking longer to hit its cycle top, then altcoins are too. The entire asset class moves together. Speaking of altcoins, check out this insight from chart analyst Matthew Hyland. Altcoins are about to enter a multi-year bull market against Bitcoin after a 4-year bear market. And when you really think about it, this makes perfect sense. We had that pump in late 2024 for a lot of altcoins, but let's be honest, that wasn't a true alt season. Most of those coins have already dropped over 90% from their peaks. XRP, on the other hand, has held up remarkably well compared to the rest. But here's what doesn't make sense to me. We haven't had a real alt season in several years. Are we seriously saying we're going to go another 4 years without one? So we'd have an 8-year period with 0 alt seasons, because reasons? Despite everything happening with global liquidity, none of that's going to flow into risk-on assets? Really? I'm sorry, but I just don't buy it. Alright, let's focus on XRP for the rest of this video. Chart analyst Dom just dropped an XRP update, and he's being refreshingly honest. He posted this late morning at 11:52 AM. I haven't been updating much, as honestly nothing meaningful has happened here yet. But here's what he's watching. My focus is on regaining the monthly RV WAP, which has failed to hold for nearly 2 months. That will send us back to the $2.40, which would make this chart look much better and show signs of a trend change. And here's the kicker. The order books are clear as can be. Whoever stays aggressive up here will win. We do not want to see anything under $2 again. That would sound the alarm that the year-long range might be ending. You know what though? XRP has been trading in this specific range, mostly between $2 and $3 for most of this year. And honestly, I absolutely love seeing this. Think about it. For the better part of a decade, I've been holding XRP while it ranged around 20, 30, 40 cents. Just stuck in that zone forever. So to see that XRP's new normal is between $2 and $3, I'm honestly thrilled about that shift. And here's what I believe. It's just going to keep trending higher as time goes on. So my strategy is simple. I'm going to wait. Listen, I don't get to choose when markets explode upward, but I do get to choose whether I have exposure when that inevitably happens, and I've chosen to be here for it. That means I have to endure all the volatility in between, but I'm an adult and I'm going to deal with it because that's what adults do. I can't control market volatility. I'm completely at peace with that reality. And here's something crucial to understand. Just because price goes lower in the short term doesn't mean it won't go much higher later. That's not how markets work, folks. Volatility is real. It's been here for 16 years, ever since crypto was born, the most volatile asset class on the entire planet. So just make peace with that fact. Now, let's dive into some seriously bullish analysis. Chart analyst Dark Defender just posted something fascinating. XRP yearly candles form the cup and handle. You can see that beautiful pattern right here on screen. He says the pattern is waiting for further surge and cites support levels at $1.88 and $2.10. But here's where it gets really interesting. His targets are much, much higher. He still believes we're heading for $5.85, $18.22, and get this, $36.76. For this market cycle, he thinks hitting those levels is totally plausible. Now, I'll be honest, when you start talking about those higher numbers, I'm definitely raising an eyebrow. I won't say it's impossible, but logically, the higher we go, the more skeptical I become if we're talking about this specific cycle. But do I think those prices are crazy at some point in the future? Absolutely not. There's more than enough money on this planet to make that happen. With XRP being such an obvious early winner in the crypto space, you give it enough time, things happen, folks. That's just how markets work. But here's the key. You have to be patient. That's not a suggestion, that's a requirement. Here's another voice worth hearing. Chart analyst X-Force Global just dropped his latest video explaining why he still believes XRP is hitting $20 plus this market cycle. He's not switching to bear mode just because that's the popular thing to do right now. He insists we're going much, much higher. And he's not alone. Chart analyst Cryptolica is in the exact same camp. He posted, XRP mere multiple bands, 100-week moving average. This is not cycle top. On the upper end, he's looking at $26.66 per XRP. He's also not wavering one bit. Here's what's really interesting. The vast majority of analysts that I personally follow are still bullish. Most analysts in general have already flipped bearish, almost all of them have. But the analysts I follow, almost none of them have switched sides. It's maybe 3 out of dozens and dozens that I track, with just a handful of others acknowledging that maybe we could be entering a bear market. But even those handful aren't really willing to commit to that bearish stance. They're just not fully convinced either way. Meanwhile, the vast majority of analysts I follow are saying, no, we're still in the bull market. And here's the thing, these analysts were right about the bottom. Remember when everyone was screaming doom and gloom? These same analysts called the bottom at the beginning of 2023 when Bitcoin was around $16,000. That was a minority opinion back then, but guess what? They nailed it. So credit where credit's due. There's a reason I follow who I follow. Now, none of them are perfect. I don't expect that. If your criteria is perfection, then there are literally 0 analysts on the planet worth following. That would be stupid criteria. That's exactly why I follow tons of analysts and treat it like a sample size. You get a pretty good feel for what's actually probable. When dozens of the analysts I follow all believe roughly the same thing, they're almost always right. And the vast majority are saying, we're going higher, even if it takes a while. Here's a perfect example. Chartner just posted about XRP Wyckoff reaccumulation, saying, this setup should not be ignored. This setup is strikingly similar. You can see that schematic right here on screen. He believes we're either at the bottom or very close to it, and then we're going to absolutely rocket much higher. He's been completely steadfast in that belief. He's still calling for around 27 XRP for this market cycle, and he's not wavering one bit. And here's another voice. Chart analyst Professor just dropped this bomb. XRP is about to pump. Same pattern, same structure, same everything. Don't say I didn't warn you. Now this concept I absolutely buy into.
This would be the historical norm, right? You get one major pump, then you move sideways, then you get another pump, and that's it for the cycle.
Here's the key insight. We've only gotten one major pump so far. The fact that we haven't gotten the second one yet, I was honestly hoping we would have by now. But if Raoul Pal is correct and we're not topping for another 7 months or so because of debt refinancing impacts on the liquidity cycle, well, that would explain everything. But here's what really convinces me we're not done. XRP hitting its peak without a euphoric blow-off top? That's the part that makes me say, no way, we're not finished. We did not have a crazy euphoric blow-off top. As soon as we see that kind of action, I'll be the first to tell you guys the end is near. But we haven't seen it yet. Even though XRP's price has pumped, it hasn't been that insane euphoric top. It hasn't happened alongside a true alt season. All those classic cycle markers still need to happen, or I'm just not going to be convinced this is over. I don't think human behavior is going to magically change. Humans still have the same DNA they had several years ago. They're going to behave the same way in similar circumstances. We just need liquidity to get back to where it needs to be because that's the major trigger. Here's one more perspective from Crypto Wizard. Sharp declines and inverse parabolic decline has arrived again. Sharp declines often precede an equally violent rally. Will XRP follow the same course this time? Patience pays. Even though we've been mostly ranging in that $2 to $3 range like I mentioned, you can see his point about the short-term action. Looking at most of the first half of the year, you could argue, and I think this is what he's getting at, it looks like there was kind of a downward trend. We were still in a range, but then we broke to the upside. Since July, when XRP hit that all-time high of $3.65, he's arguing it looks like we've been trending down despite still being in that range. So he's wondering, is this the moment where we finally rip to the upside? That's the big question he's pondering, but he still believes the best is yet to come. He's been calling for double-digit price action on XRP too. Now, here's something interesting. Chart analyst Crypto Tony looks like he just flipped his stance a few days ago. He was bearish, thinking XRP could dip down to around $1.50 or so. But now he's saying XRP is going higher over the next few weeks. Christmas rally, please. In his defense, though, there are other analysts I follow who are still cautious. Take Credible Crypto, for example. He says XRP could go down to around $1.60. He's not predicting it, just acknowledging the possibility. But in that same post where he warned about it, he said, but then after that, it goes to all-time highs. That wouldn't break higher timeframe structure. So even if that happened, it's not the end of the world. Here's where things get really interesting. CW just posted that the sell wall for XRP exists at $2.30. If this sell wall is broken, there are no other sell walls until $2.50, thin air above. And we're not far off from that level. We actually got pretty close within the last 24 hours, didn't we? That's exactly the level chart analyst Tara is talking about. She posted, XRP also missed its critical fib touch at $2.30 by 1 penny. It could attempt to reach that level now on this wave up while Bitcoin goes to its resistance. Super critical moment on XRP. She explains that $2.30 is the macro level XRP needs to reclaim to help confirm the bottom. As long as XRP stays below this level, another touch of that critical $1.88 level is still possible. But she says it can bounce between these major levels as long as it needs to build support. So she's actually one of the analysts I was referencing earlier. She thinks it's possible we could go lower. But here's the key, she's still optimistic. Even if that happens, shake out whoever needs to be shaken out, then rip to the upside. That's the general sentiment. And here's another perspective from chart analyst Dalia Martinez. He was warning about a potential bottom around $2, which we pretty much hit recently. Then, just last night, he posted, XRP bounced off the bottom of the channel and could be heading toward the midpoint around $2.60.
So he thinks there's a real chance we could be ripping much higher in the short term. Listen, folks, I just don't think this story is over. Even if this is just a relief rally and we head back down, somebody please give me a compelling reason to believe everything's finished. But here's my requirement. If you think it's over, you've got to include macro arguments, not just chart analysis, or I won't find it sufficiently compelling.